Morning, everyone, and welcome to this Thursday rainy mornings webinar. I am Chloe Tetra, I'm the health coach here with Ready Care. And for this morning, we're going to have a quick look at the role of social connection in brain health and well-being. So, just a quick old look at it, what it means, what are the key takeaway points with it. So, where to begin with the social connection? You can see I had my own little brain moment there. So as people, we're very social creatures. Our brains are wired to seek out and maintain social connections and social interactions. They would play a critical role in overall health and well-being. So in recent years, some of the neuroscience research has shed a light with the imaging and research that's emerged on the actual mechanisms that are underlying the relationship between social connections and brain health, and showing that really social isolation and loneliness can have serious consequences for our mental and physical health. So it's something that we'd kind of have an awareness of in our own lives, but really let's have a quick look at the science of social connection and what it is that makes um, social connection so crucial and vital to how we experience well-being. So what is it exactly? At its core, the social connection would be a sense of belonging and relatedness that we feel in relationship to others. It encompasses a range of experiences, from joy of spending time with loved ones to feeling of being part of a larger and broader community or group. Um, One way in which social interactions affects the brain is through the impact it has on our stress levels. So research has shown that social support can buffer the effects of stress on the body and the brain, and it helps us to cope more effectively with challenging situations. There's a particular study, for example, where researchers have found that individuals who reported higher levels of social support exhibited lower levels of cortisol. And cortisol, we would know, would be one of the stress hormones that would make everyday living a little bit more difficult. Um, this would suggest that social connection may help to regulate the body's stress response, and it protects the brain from the damaging effects of chronic stress. And chronic stress and higher levels of cortisol over a very prolonged period of time can actually be quite damaging and deteriorating for not only health and well-being, but the actual physicality of our brain and bodies. Social connection isn't just good for stress reduction. It does appear to have a positive impact on cognitive function. So in its inverse, how stress can have an impact to lower cognitive function, social connection can have a very positive part on our cognitive function. Um, Literature at the moment would suggest that researchers have found the social support was associated with greater cognitive performance in older adults, particularly on tasks that required attention and executive function. So again, if we think about it, cortisol lowers our executive function. Social connection, which lowers cortisol, would improve our executive function. Other research has suggested that social connection may even help to protect against cognitive decline in old age. So these findings would suggest that social connection may play a crucial role in maintaining brain health and function over the course of our lives. Social connection is not just reducing stress and boosting cognitive function, it has a powerful impact on emotions and sense of well-being. So how we show up in the world, how we actually get to enjoy the days. Research has shown that social supports can promote positive emotions and well-being, helping to feel happier, more satisfied with life, more connected to others. In a particular study, for example, researchers found that individuals who reported higher levels of social support also reported higher levels of positive life affect. So that would be positive emotions. The affect would be how we actually experience things, and had a greater sense of life satisfaction overall, which would suggest that it's a key ingredient in the recipe for a happy and fulfilling life. So let's have a look at its quick inverse, the health consequences of social isolation and loneliness. And we've all heard specific stories of one of the ways that individuals, whether it be in our own lives, workplaces, or even stories we may have heard from others, is one of the ways that is a great marker for knowing that somebody's going through a tough time, or perhaps their quality of life has decreased, or their affect has become more negative is social withdrawal, isolation, that type of withdrawal from social connections. So with the powerful impact that social connection has on brain and well-being, it is no surprise that the social isolation and loneliness can have serious health consequences. Research has shown that chronic social isolation and loneliness are associated with a range of negative health outcomes like depression, anxiety, cardiovascular disease, believe it or not, and even mortality. One way in which social isolation and loneliness can impact health is through the effects on the immune system. So studies have found that social isolation is associated with increased inflammation in the body, which can contribute to a range of health problems, including autoimmune disorders, cardiovascular disease, and depression. Similarly, loneliness has been linked with high inflammatory markers in the body and activity in the amygdala, which would be the brain region involved in processing emotions, and also would be the part of the brain that tends to light up when we're feeling anxious, when we're more fearful, when we're kind of on high alert and not quite enjoying a kind of more relaxed and positive way of living. So that would suggest that social isolation and loneliness can have profound effects on the body and the brain and increase the health problems associated with lack of social connection. And finally, some strategies for cultivating social connection, which can kind of seem like the obvious, but it depends where you're at in your own life. So, and you know, the particular age group. So different age groups will have different will have different entry points into social connection. So joining a club or a group that aligns with your interests, you're going to find people of like-minded interests, which is going to break that initial barrier to forming conversation, because whether you're an introvert or whether you're an extrovert, you'll have a common topic to discuss. Spending time with loved ones, spending times with family members. Of course, that's not applicable to all people depending on your own situations. But if you have access to a support network like family and friends, to really kind of tap into that, knowing that not only is it good for you, it's good for them, it's reciprocal. Social media, up to a point. Social media can be good for staying connected, but of course, we know that as it's becoming more dominant, let's say, in our everyday life, there are some inverse effects of relying on social media as the complete way to gain some social interaction. So what I'd say there is using it mindfully for conversation that's fruitful, practicing empathy and active listening. And for those in specific workplaces, this is something that's come in quite a bit for continuous professional development, because of how important it is to form connections through practicing empathy and active listening. So it's one of the most powerful ways to deepen a social connection, is to practice that. When you take the time to listen to somebody and understand their perspective, there's a sense of fostered understanding and mutual connection that happens there. And that's one of the best ways to actually get to the heart of that social connection. So it's not just a chit chat, mundane surface, but actually actively listening and trying to step into where that person is at. Volunteering is another one where you will get to help others, and it's a really good way to build social connections and also to bring up meaning and purpose. So meaning and purpose, we might have mentioned a while ago, people with higher social interactions tend to have higher markers of fulfilling life. Meaning and purpose is another way to bring it up. So volunteering, and that can be, as it doesn't need to be kind of, you know, through specific organizations, although if that's something you can do, brilliant. But even volunteering your time in your own life, you know, is there somebody that you know that could be going through a tough time? Might it be an idea to go and volunteer some of your own time to help out around the house, to help to make dinners? If you have a pool of parents, might it be nice to volunteer taking on the kids for an afternoon and building that social connection with the parents around? So overall, it is a fundamental human need, and it plays a critical role in both brain health and well-being factors. reduces stress, improves cognitive function, and promotes positive emotions and well-being. Cultivating social connections through meaningful relationships and community involvement can support your well-being, brain health on all aspects there. So it's a nice thing to get involved in. It's a good way to build your own social network offline and to really make sure that you're looking after you're looking after those that you care about. If it's outside of yourself and you've noticed excuse me, somebody has withdrawn somewhat, now it's natural for everybody once in a while to want to take some introspective time. But if it's something that you've noticed in others and those that you care about, maybe reaching out could be a good way to help your own brain health and well-being, and maybe volunteer to help somebody else's. So lads, that is me for this morning. If there's any questions, I'll leave a few seconds at the end. So rounding up, I would say Andrew will be back next time, and in the meantime, enjoy. I was going to say enjoy the day, but it's fairly miserable out there. Have a lovely time, and we'll be chatting to you soon.